Well, welcome to Church360 Unite, How to Customize Your Theme, one of our ongoing training webinars on how to use the different features of Church360 Unite. My name is Peter Frank. I am the manager of Concordia Technology Solutions. You can see my contact information there. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions about anything covered in this webinar or anything related to our products. I always love talking with our churches and congregations out there. It's always a joy to hear how the different ministries are using our products. Today we're talking about how to customize your theme. I want to clarify something up front. I am not a web designer, at least not professionally. I am a manager of our department. I focus on marketing, but I've actually done church websites as a side project, as a hobby for many years. My first church website that I helped with was back in around 1999, 2000, there, about my home congregation. I was just a teenager then, and it was a joy to learn that process, learn how it works through different people at the congregation, the committees and such. But I've actually been doing some web design since 1997. So right around the time when web design was first becoming popular, I learned how to do it. So I have not kept up my knowledge to the point that I could do it professionally. There's so many different things out there, but one of the great things about Church360 Unite is that you don't need to be an expert in web design. And so what we're going to cover today are some web design concepts. Get the basics out there so that you understand what exactly Church360 Unite is doing. I don't plan to teach you HTML or CSS or JavaScript or anything like that, but I do want to teach you about it. I want to make sure that everybody knows the core concepts so they can see kind of what Unite is doing in the background, and that'll help you customize your themes as you go. So we're going to talk about some core concepts of web design. We're going to get into Church360 Unite and how the themes actually work. So we'll go through how to add a theme, how to clone a theme, which is saving as, how to customize the different things which are called presets. Then we'll get into a little bit more advanced stuff with the edit mode, and I'll show you, or not edit mode, but the edit view. I'll show you how to edit your theme, and then our new advanced tab, and then we'll use that tab as well as the edit to do a few common add-ons, including buttons and Google Fonts. So we've got a lot to cover. We'll get started. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and I put some very basic HTML on the screen for you to see. Now, like I said, I'm not teaching you HTML. You don't need to learn what that is, but I thought I'd show you what it looks like. Again, this is very basic. Every other web page out there is very complex and goes into much more detail than this, but it shows you a few of the core components. And you'll see there those things within the less than or greater than, so those little arrows there, those are called tags. And you'll see that there's an opening tag and a closing tag, and the title is a great way to see that. You'll notice that those icons, the greater than, less than, the slash, those fit into our Church360 Unite icon because Unite is doing that on the back end, and we wanted to kind of give you that core concept. So Hypertext Markup Language, HTML, is kind of the core structure of all web design. The next thing that I'll show you is called CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. And this is a little bit different. It works with HTML. Again, it's written in pretty plain English, where you define a certain aspect of the page, whether it's the body or like H1 is the header one, and then you have defined some different attributes to it, such as background color or text alignment. You see down there under the P for paragraph, you can define the font family, the font size. So it's very similar to what you do in a word processor like Microsoft Word. I don't know how many of you have actually tried the different styles that it comes with. It comes with many predefined styles, but that's exactly what this is doing here. As you say, anything that is our header 1 will look like this. Have orange, it'll be centered. Anything that's in the paragraph will be Times New Roman. And so it's really a great way to provide consistency across your website by defining everything that is like one another to look the same. Next thing is JavaScript, the programming language of HTML on the web, as I found as a kind of a definition for it. This gets a little bit more complex. This is beyond my scope. I cannot write JavaScript. I can barely read it. And you can see there that it gets into a lot more detail. The different color tags there show a little bit of real English, but for the most part, it's programming. and it is the movement of things on the web. And what we'll look at now is kind of a basic summary of how these things tie together. So HTML, you could define that as the bones of the website. It's the site structure. It connects all the different elements together. Every single website is based on HTML. It is a programming language per se, but it's more of a markup language. It defines how something will appear from the very structure of a website. But then CSS, you could say, is the skin of the website. It's the external appearance. It's the colors of the different elements. It's the design, the alignment. It's also the placement. So you can move something using CSS. And that's become much more common to have all your placement defined by CSS, especially as you've gotten into mobile design. It will respond accordingly. So CSS is the skin, HTML is the bones, which makes JavaScript kind of the muscles. It's the movement of the site. It's the simple actions and reactions, some simple if-then statements. If this happens, then do this. And so that's why I define it as the muscles, that it actually does the different actions on the site. Now, there's other programming languages that can also be used online. JavaScript is one of the most common. It's surprisingly enough a lightweight programming language, but it can do some pretty powerful things. The last thing on here, and I gave it a very general term, the application. This is the actual app or application that's running in the background. So Church360 Unite is what we define as our application. It's developed with a programming language called Ruby on Rails, and it does a lot more in the background than what any of the other things do. So that's why I put it as the brain of the operations. It's the very complex actions. It's actually the connection to the database, all the data that is stored. So you can see that as kind of like your brain connects to your memories and applies that to the rest of your body. That's the application here. So core concepts of web design, I wanted to get that out there so that you have an understanding of what's going on in the background. Next, we'll look at some basic structure. So back in the old days, 1997, when I was learning web design, you had your HTML files that were pretty much just basically HTML code. Well, then quickly JavaScript became a part of it and CSS became a part of it, and that was all combined into one document and put on the website. It was one file. It was a .html file. Well, that quickly became more complex, and so while you'll have your .html files as their own individual files, you'll start getting things like CSS files or JavaScript files, and these things can then be tied to the HTML. So connect those to it, and so those are all unique files, and they all connect back to the HTML file. And then also on the HTML file, you can connect to other file types like JPGs, PNGs, GIFs, images, audio, even PDFs, and so those are connected to the HTML file where it sends the user to those things. So all of these individual files are tied together on a single web page, but they're still unique elements, and they can be recycled across your website. So then the HTML file becomes a little bit more complex, where you'll still have your HTML and CSS and maybe some JavaScript actually in the file, but then you'll have it linked to these other files, these separate files that are stored outside of the HTML page. So I did it in a very simple site structure where you've got a couple external CSS files, external JavaScript, then your in-file CSS and HTML, linking to those other files. CSS, you'll see there that we've got two external ones and an internal one. You can also apply it to the different elements. So that's what we're going to look at next. So in a single HTML file, you could have a couple different external CSS files, and then an internal CSS code written there. And then, for example, on an image, JPEG image, you could put some inline CSS, and you could do things like the width or the height, and tie that to that specific file. Well, the reason it's called cascading style sheets is that you can build upon each other, and what actually affects these individual elements is based on the order of the file, but it goes kind of in reverse order. So anything that is applied to that image directly inline takes priority over anything that is applied internally in the code, and generally before that you would apply your external CSS files. And so you can have, let's say your first CSS file is your core design for your entire site, but then your next external one is for that specific section of the site. So for example, on our CTS site, we have a file for Concordia Technology, but then we also have one for Unite. But then on the, let's say, pricing page, I would have a separate line of CSS or code of CSS that dictates just that page, and then even farther down, just that specific element, like a picture. And so you have this reverse order and priority, and that becomes very important as we start looking at how you build a theme. So the last thing I want to just make sure to clarify is that you know that you've got these individual files like an HTML file, CSS file, script, but when you put them on your website, they all become individual URLs, addresses. You can access these files online because they are read from multiple sources. So you put your domain on the end of that, and then that becomes very important as we look at Unite. So let's talk about how Unite works. Well, Unite has this concept of themes. So themes are a collection of HTML files, CSS files, JavaScript files, and what we call assets, which could be images, could be a variety of things. It's usually within our themes just images. Now, within the Unite application, you have presets, which are variations of those same themes. So, for example, we have a ribbon theme, but there's multiple presets. Well, the presets are just a change in the CSS and a change in the assets, the image files. So they look and feel the same, but you may change the skin. You may change the color of it, the font of certain elements. You may change the background image. Now, when you access the edit theme part of it, and we'll take a look at that here shortly, you can actually change any of those files. You can change the HTML or the CSS. You can change whatever image you want, add your own. And so that's really changing the core concept of the theme, and you could even start from scratch and build your own theme with those different elements. Now, something new that we added, we've called it the advanced menu, where you keep the core structure of your theme, but you can add additional files to it or add additional linkages to external files. And that allows you to do some pretty dynamic things without actually changing the theme. And we'll, as we look at a couple custom add-ons, that's what we'll be doing. All right, so two things about Unite that are rather different. Each theme will have a default.theme file, and that is actually the HTML shell for the entire site. When we look at that briefly, you'll see that there's some additional elements on there, or I'll point those out to you, that show that it's not a true HTML file, but it's the core shell for writing the HTML for each page. And then you also have a theme.description file, and this is the collection of presets. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my Church360 Unite view, and I want to make sure that's showing up there. Good. And right now we just have a core shell of a site, and I don't think we're going to do too much more than that. But if you're an administrator, up in the Themes tab, you'll see the first thing is the Browse Themes. And from here you can change your theme to any one of our predefined themes. So I've got it on the Light module right now. But you can look at any of the other 9 options that we have there. Then under Customize, this is where you can select your different presets. And you click down here and you'll say, I want to go to dark particles, or let's go blue sky. That's always a nice friendly one. And you click Save Changes, and it switches to your blue sky. Now, you didn't change your themes at all, you just changed your preset. Within that preset, you could change a few other things. So for example, the banner, I've already uploaded our logo here for our Christ Community Church. You can change that, click Save Changes, it'll refresh your page, and there's your logo right there. So again, you're not changing the theme, you're customizing it through the different preset options, and you're kind of making your own preset at that point in time. Well, now we'll click Edit, and you'll see now that you cannot do anything with Edit because it's the out-of-the-box theme. But if you clone your theme, pardon me, if you clone your theme, and we'll just say a webinar example here, and we'll add a dash in there just so there's no spaces. So we'll create that theme. Now it is copying the exact theme that we have, but it's no longer the light theme. It is now our webinar example. Oh, there's my webinar task. I forgot to get rid of that when I was getting this. So you can still go in and customize your webinar example, but now you can go into edit mode and see all of the different assets that we talked about before. You've got your default.theme file. You've got your theme description. We'll look at that a little bit more closely in just a moment. There's your JavaScript files, your CSS files, so we'll look at that. There's your CSS that has all of the different things related to the appearance of the site. And there's your JavaScript files, which are a little bit more complex. We won't go into those details, but on your default.theme file, you'll see that there's basic HTML, those tags that we talked about before. There's also these little mustache things. It's the curly bracket, but it's the concept is called mustache, which allows our application to apply different things within the HTML. So for example, here we apply the page title and the church name automatically using this mustache, and that's applied elsewhere in your settings, but plugged into your HTML code. And so within your edit theme, you'll see that you've got this CSS, the text CSS. We'll talk about that in just a second, where this is that kind of in-file CSS. You've also got links to these external CSS files. Those go back to these folders here. And then more HTML code, and down at the bottom, links to your JavaScript files. So I know I ran through that very briefly, and that's okay. I'm not here to teach you HTML and CSS. I'm here to show you how to do some customizations. Advanced is our new section here where it allows you to add different code in, and we'll look at two examples in just a moment. So let's first go back here and look at your theme description. Your theme.description file are your different presets. So you'll see here that these are the options that are included for this theme. There's your body font options, your heading font options, and then down here are your presets that say, okay, for the sunburst preset, here are the things that we are putting in as our predefined theme, or a predefined preset. That's a mouthful. So you could go down here and create your own new preset, and we'll call that, let's just call it new preset. So that sounds real easy. And we can just change it to be Arial. And then you save those changes. And when you go back to theme and go to customize, you look at your presets, and now you have a new preset. And it was based off that other one, but now it has Arial as the body font. So if you wanted to change your theme throughout the year, but you wanted to make sure to save it, you could go in here to the theme.description and create your own presets. If you really know what you're doing, you can go and actually edit your default.theme file, change the appearance of the site, you could change your style sheets. That's more complex than what we're wanting to get into today. So next I want to show two different things that we have here. And let me switch back over to our PowerPoint, make sure that changed. The two things that we're going to go on are free add-ons. One is buttons on their CSS button generator, and I put that on there. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, we are recording this webinar, so you can go to our YouTube channel and watch this again and get these URLs, but you may want to just jot a note down right now with these URLs right now. So the first one we're going to do is the bestcssbuttongenerator.com. And let me switch back to our browser window here, and I've already got that open. So this is just a free tool, and there's plenty of free tools out there. This is just one of my favorite, and you'll have to put up with some of the ads that show. But what's cool is this button generator gives you all these different options of buttons that you can add. And within the button, you can go in and customize and change how that button looks and how wide it is, the different colors. But what's neat is that when you click on it, it shows you the code that you need to apply. So you've got two pieces of code. You've got HTML and you've got CSS. So this part here is the CSS, and that can be added to your Unite file in two different ways. One, you could add it into your actual style sheets here. If you've cloned your theme and you have access to edit, you can just go and paste that at the bottom. But we're going to do a different example where we're going to put it under the advanced, because you can access advanced even if you're using our default theme files where you're not actually going and cloning it. So you'd go in here and you'd get the Get CSS and paste it in. Now that goes up here under the custom header. And I do want to mention one thing. The CSS here that they have is meant to be copied and pasted into the CSS file. If you're doing it in here, you'll have to add two things. Let me go back to our PowerPoint, and I've got the instructions here. You'll set up your button, you go to Advanced under Custom Headers, and you'll surround it with this copy right here, or this text. So let me switch over, and I'll just paste this in. There's my style type equals text CSS. And we'll go back here, get the CSS, paste it right in between. You'll see there that's the beginning and end of it, and we'll go ahead and save those changes. Now that's applied to the code, and I can go into edit mode or edit page and click in here. And you've got two options. You can go here to embed media or go to the source. I always like to embed the media. That's where you can embed any kind of HTML. We'll go back to this one, click the Get HTML, and paste it in here. And all this is doing is creating a button with text, and you can change it. And this is my button. And you can say this is going to http://www.concordiatechnology.org. Click OK. And now we've got the button. And we just go ahead and click Save. Go out of edit mode. And you'll see that it is styled a little bit differently. Those are some of the links, but you can adjust that here within the code. That was just the default, but when you click on it, it will then take you to your page. Go ahead and refresh that. I think I did something wrong there. Well, we won't go into it too much. Let's see what I did here. Well, I'm not sure. It worked out perfectly during my test, but that's all right. I want to get to the next thing here. So the next thing that we're going to look at is going to be adding Google fonts. So Google fonts are free web fonts. Now, fonts are kind of a sticky situation with the web because there's only a certain number of fonts that are actually able to be used on the web without adding special code. Well, Google provides this code, and so the page that you're going to go to is google.com/fonts. We'll go up here, so google.com/fonts, and you've got a whole collection. It looks like 707 font families available. We're going to look up one of my favorites called Lato. And Lato is a very basic sans serif font. When you go to use it, you just click Add to Collection, and it'll put it down here. And you can go to Review and see what it looks like in a variety of different sizes, but then you go to Use. Now there's a lot of different styles for the font, and they give you this, let me make sure everybody good. Just want to make sure everybody's seeing the same thing I'm seeing here. On the right here, you'll see there's this page load time. Now, when you're installing a font, it actually installs a file temporarily on the user's computers. And so the more fonts and the more styles you have, the more that has to be downloaded onto the computer. And so it starts increasing your load time. And so as you add these, you'll see that all of a sudden we're in the red. That's why you really don't want to use too many different custom fonts on an individual web page. You just want to use them in a very small amount so that the load time is not a problem. So we'll just go with this one here. And you'll see down here it's add code to your site. So we've got this link here, and it's basically linking to the CSS for the font to say we can now use the style. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. We'll go back to our page, and we'll hit cancel on there, go up to themes and advanced, and go under custom headers, and we're just going to put this up at the top. And this is now linking to this external CSS file, and we're going to save our changes there just to make sure it locks in place. We're going to go to themes and then edit. Now this will have to be done with a cloned theme, and the reason for that is you want to be able to get under your theme.description file. And what we want to do is we want to just go in here and we add Lotto as an example of a potential body font, and we'll do that also under the heading font. And we'll click Save Changes. This is kind of like voting in Chicago. You want to save early, save often. After each action, you just save your changes. Now we can go into this Customize Your Theme, go down here to Lotto, and pick that for each your body font and your heading font. And we'll save changes. And now we have that available. So when you click Edit Page and go down here and start typing, this is Lotto. You've changed the font. Now it's very similar to some other sans serif fonts, but it is unique and it can be viewed on any page because we've tied it to that CSS file. So let me go back to the PowerPoint and just make sure we've got that in place. So the first thing you do is after you go to google.com/fonts is you choose your font. You add that standard code under the advanced custom headers, and just a note, it must be a custom theme. Then you add the font to theme.description file, and you select the font under customize. And so now this opens up your options. Go back here and just look real quick. Again, I said I think it was 707 fonts that you can have. There's all sorts of great fonts here. Some of them are probably pretty familiar to you because they're quite popular. But you can add any one of these to your site. Grumpy Wizards, Indie Flower is the name of this one. It's this nice kind of handwritten font. You can add that to your website and use it, but like I said before, just make sure that you're doing in small doses. You don't want to add too many because it's going to slow down your website. All right, so I believe that is about it. I'm going to go ahead and put my contact information up there. Peter Frank is my name. peter.frank@cph.org is my email address. My phone number is listed there. You can also call our software support team at 800-346-6120 and then support@cts.cph.org. So these add-ons are just two of the many things that you can do as you customize your theme. Yeah, we are about at our time. I'm sorry if I ran through that real quickly. We had a lot to cover, but I do appreciate you attending. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at that address. And I think that is it. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.